So far, we have covered multiple aspects of the Brewmaster class, from offensive rotation to mitigation to cooldown usage, but in this video, we're going to go a little deeper, talking about hero talents, specifically Shado-pan, that's available for the level 80 Brewmaster Monk. This video is being recorded early in 11.2 patch Ghosts of Koresh. With the hero talents being a newly implemented evergreen system, there is a chance for Blizzard to build upon these subspecializations, and if they do, I will do a follow-up video if there's any major changes. The two hero talents play into existing fantasies or tropes of the monk class. That being Shado-pan, the proud defenders of Pandaria, or Master of Harmony, those who have refined their flow of chi and natural cycles of power. These two different hero talents play differently, but are pretty much entirely passive. Shado-pan is the aggressor type, looking for bursts of damage by properly allocating resources to spending energy as efficiently as possible. Master of Harmony, on the other hand, instead flows with the state of combat, shrugging off blows and counter-striking with overwhelming amounts of harmonic damage through their vitality. For the sake of time, in this video, we are going to focus specifically on Shado-pan subspecialization of this lovely class. Let's dive in. Shado-pan is by far my personal favorite, and I've been a long-time enjoyer of this hero talents. The entire premise of this subspec is that you will spend energy during combat, and once you reach a threshold of 240 energy spent, you're going to unleash a barrage of strikes against all targets in front of you. Achieving this 240 energy requirement can be done through offensive abilities like Keg Smash, Tiger Palm, and Spinning Crane Kick, but it can also be achieved through utility spells like Vivify, Expel Harm, and Paralysis. Whenever you do spend energy, you'll see a tracker for this in the form of a buff. While the average player can pretty much ignore this, I do recommend tracking this buff to optimize its damage if you're interested. While Flurry Strikes don't deal groundbreaking damage by themselves, the real meat of this ability will come from the capstone of the talent tree. This is called Wisdom of the Wall, which has many parts to it. Before we get into Wisdom of the Wall though, let's break down each of the talents. Flurry Strike is the core mechanic of the Shado-pan monk. By dealing damage, you're going to occasionally store a charge of Flurry Strikes based on a certain threshold of damage. Once you spend 240 energy, each charge will be dispatched from your character, dealing damage to all enemies in front of the Brewmaster Monk. Chances are you're always going to be capped at 10 Flurry Strike charges, so there isn't really much to worry about, but this is going to be important once we talk about the capstone. Let's move into the rest of the tree. Probably the least important node in here, or impactful node, is Martial Precision. Essentially, this will cause your attacks to ignore 12% of armor. Now, this doesn't mean much in PvE content, but it is a slight damage boost, or you can think of it as such. Next, we have Veteran's Eye, one of the first real talents in this talent tree. Every time you strike an enemy within a short period of time, you're going to gain a stacking haste buff. While haste hasn't been super valuable for the Brewmaster Monk in quite some time, this has some small implications that positively affect our energy regeneration and a slight cooldown reduction on all abilities affected by haste, which includes Keg Smash, Rising Sun Kick, and Purifying Brew. This talent provides enough haste to generally be able to ignore haste altogether on your gear. And the last talent in the first row of the tree is Pride of Pandaria versus High Impact. This is a choice node. This is pretty much just a small damage gain for the Brewmaster Monks. Pride of Pandaria grants an additional 15% critical strike chance on your Flurry Strikes, which means you're going to just do more damage. Unfortunately, the other choice node struggles to compete. High Impact is basically a pseudo-execute ability that will cause mobs to erupt for shatter damage when they die within 10 seconds of being afflicted by Flurry Strikes. While this does sound great in practice, it does very little to no damage and requires the Brewmaster to be able to proc Flurry Strikes near the end of a pull. Moving down to the next half of the tree, we have One versus Many. This central talent grants the Brewmaster a sizable bolster to their Keg Smash ability and increases the amount of damage it contributes to building stacks of Flurry Strikes. The latter half of this talent is pretty lackluster since it doesn't really take much damage to actually stack up and accumulate a Flurry Strike charge. And you're generally going to hit 10 stack cap anyways before you actually approach the amount of energy required to expel these charges. To the left of this, we have Predictive Training and Whirling Steel. This is the primary defensive choice node for this hero talent tree. Sadly, it's very heavily leaning in favor of one of the talents, which is Predictive Training. This grants the Brewmaster a flat 10% damage reduction whenever they dodge an attack, which means that in Mythic Plus, you're essentially going to have 100% uptime on this 10% damage reduction. This is very important to know because this is the major difference between Master of Harmony and Shado-pan. While Master of Harmony tends to clear more stagger and in turn more healing, Shado-pan tends to mitigate the raw damage up front due to this damage reduction. Sadly, Whirling Steel is the pseudo damage stop Brewmasters would love to have, but it falls short of anything worthwhile. When brought below 50% health, you would gain avoidance and parry, but it's only 15%. What really kills us as an option is the insanely long 3-minute cooldown. Comparing a short buff like a flat 10% DR, there's an obvious clear winner. Shifting our focus over to the left-hand side, we have Protect and Serve and Lead from the Front. This choice node gives the Brewmaster some additional self-healing through their Chi cooldowns, like Chi Burst and Chi Wave. Generally, it's more common to see Brewmaster players utilizing Protect and Serve, which causes Vivify to heal for an additional 30% value. Vivacious Vivification is a talent in the tree that allows Brewmasters to instantly cast Vivify with an additional 20% healing amp every time they cast Rising Sun Kick. These talents in conjunction turn Vivify into a very solid way to self-heal if needed. Besides our capstone, Efficient Training is probably the most impactful talent in our hero talent tree. This is a sizable damage amp for Keg Smash and provides the Brewmaster cooldown reduction on Weapons of Order, which is our major cooldown. This paired with talents like Chi Surge can turn this 2-minute cooldown into roughly an 80 to 90 second CD if energy spending is actually optimized. Against All Odds is a talent that grants 1% agility per Flurry Strike charge that was dispatched. This means that every time you expel a set of Flurry Strikes, you should be gaining about 10% agility for 5 seconds. Most of the time, this won't be really impactful to your gameplay loop, but it's good to be aware that you're going to be dealing more damage for a few seconds after you proc a Flurry Strike. So, in the case you proc Flurry Strikes, you want to follow it up with an Exploding Keg or a Chi Burst to really optimize the damage. Outside of the capstone, we have Vigilant Watch. This talent simply buffs the damage of your Blackout Kick and causes your Blackout Kick to increase the damage of your Flurry Strikes. Since Blackout Kick is already a staple of the Brewmaster's rotation and should be hit on cooldown, there really isn't much to optimize here, it's just a flat damage gain. Last but not least, we have Wisdom of the Wall. This is the final capstone talent, and there's a lot to unpack here. To start, every time you expel 10 Flurry Strike charges, you're going to gain one of the 4 buffs listed. Now, these buffs do hold different values, which creates a small issue of RNG being a factor in your damage. Any of the stat buffs are going to last for 16 seconds, but the damage proc for Shadow is going to last for 40 seconds. The general idea is that you're going to be able to spend 240 energy roughly every 15 to 20 seconds, give or take. Therefore, you're always going to have one of these active at all times. While 3 of the 4 buffs really just provide stats, when the Shadow Damage Wisdom buff is active, future Flurry Strikes will hit very, very hard. Now, with all the talents out of the way, let's talk about how to play around the Shado-pan Monk. And we really have 3 main points here. First, we want to focus on tracking the Wisdom of the Wall buff specifically for shadow damage. Along with this, you, I guess, also want to be tracking your energy being spent. Next, we have Black Ox Brew being offensively used after depleting all your energy. And lastly, we want to always be casting energy abilities, so your ABCs, even when you're out of range. So let's get into it. Playing Shado-pan is a lot like playing red light, green light. You'll generally be playing conservatively, or I guess normally in this case. And that's until you get your shadow damage proc from Wisdom of the Wall. This puts Brewmaster on a 40-second timer to attempt to at least get 2 sets of Flurry Strikes built up to 10 and then dispatched to optimize our damage. Spending 240 energy within 20 seconds can be tricky, but it's going to be worthwhile. As a precursor, I want to advise not to really botch your rotation to attempt to proc these Flurry Strikes. What I mainly mean by this is that you shouldn't just start spamming Spinning Crane Kick or Tiger Palm, because that's just going to be super inefficient to your energy economy. Our biggest dump of energy, though, is Keg Smash, so quickly refunding a charge through casting something like Weapons of Order can be an easy way to dump a lot of energy in a short period of time. So similar to the actual ramp of Weapons of Order, you want to Keg Smash, then pop weapons, and then pop Keg Smash again. Getting this damage amp up will also allow your Flurry Strikes to hit even harder. So not only are you spending a lot of energy in a short period of time, but you're also going to get that damage amp. The best ability for the Brewmaster Monk in this situation, though, is actually going to be Black Ox Brew. This ability can instantly reset your energy bar and is off the global cooldown. While resetting your brews with this ability is good, the energy portion is what we're really after. In perfect conditions, you're going to be using this ability when all of your brews are on cooldown and your energy is low, ideally below 25 energy, and you're attempting to expel a shadow set of Flurry Strikes. So there's a lot of conditions at play here. When you are in this situation, you should attempt to deplete your energy as fast as possible. 2 Keg Smashes should easily get the job done, followed by a Tiger Palm, or some back-to-back Tiger Palms can be useful in this case. Basically, you want to be below 25 energy before using Black Ox Brew in a perfect situation, and immediately attempt to spend all the energy you can. Once you hit this ability, you also want your next global to be an energy spender, because if it's not, you're going to be capped. While we don't want to be starved on energy, we also don't want to be sitting at 100. These 2 abilities between Weapons of Order and Black Ox Brew allow the Brewmaster to spend a massive amount of energy in a very short window, proccing Flurry Strikes quickly. While this is optimal in a Wisdom of the Wall window, you can also do it pretty early in a pull to make sure you get Wisdom of the Wall rolling for some good burst damage, or during boss burns. Understanding these 2 things are pretty much the bread and butter to making Shado-pan deal as much damage as possible. The one last thing I want to mention as a tip is that monks should always be using their abilities to benefit their energy spending, even when they're not engaging with enemies. Brewmaster monks can essentially prepare Flurry Strikes to proc earlier in a pull than normal by casting abilities like Spinning Crane Kick or even Vivify while they're not in range of targets. This can be done early on when walking up towards a pull, or at the end of the pull while you're setting up for the next one. Banking energy is a really good way to have an explosive start to a pull. In essence, Shado-pan Monk is all about optimizing your energy spending. The main buff you want to look out for specifically is the shadow damage proc from Wisdom of the Wall. Whenever this buff is up, you want to take into account your available cooldowns and know how to quickly spend your energy. Like we previously stated, Weapons of Order will refund you a Keg Smash charge, allowing the brew to quickly dump 40 energy in quick succession. Then, ramping this debuff up to 32% will allow your damage to really shine and overwhelm your foes. Black Ox Brew becomes a pseudo-offensive cooldown when playing Shado-pan. When you have this ability, you can become even more aggressive with your energy spending by spending Keg Smash charges immediately, followed by Tiger Palms, especially with Blackout combo. While resetting your brews is a big effect of Black Ox Brew, the energy reset can accelerate the rate that the Brewmaster can dump energy without becoming fatigued. If you can strengthen these two habits, it won't be long before you can start competing with DPS on the meters. Last but not least, never stop casting energy spells. Casting Spinning Crane Kick while kiting or running into the next pull can set up Flurry Strikes to be dispatched earlier and will maintain your Wisdom on the Wall buffs. Now, the very last thing I want to talk about in this video is the 11.2 tier set. This won't be applicable in the Midnight expansion and beyond, unless my theory is correct that they're going to be adding this tier set in some type of version into the hero talent trees, but we'll wait to see the Midnight release for that. This tier set is very, very powerful and causes your Weapons of Order to proc Flurry Strikes immediately and speed up the rate you can proc Flurry Strikes with the 4 set. Whenever you cast Weapons of Order, you will automatically proc a free 10-stack set of Flurry Strikes. This has a few great implications. First, it'll be a nice burst of immediate damage to start off the pull. It'll also grant the Brewmaster a Wisdom of the Wall buff on demand, which can bolster the Brewmaster's defense and offense. The 4 set builds upon this by allowing Flurry Strikes to proc every 120 energy, or in other words, twice as often. This means that the Brewmaster Monk can deal tremendous damage, and it's going to slightly reduce the RNG nature of Flurry Strikes by a bit. The more you proc Flurry Strikes, the faster you'll cycle through the different Wisdom of the Wall buffs. While there is still an RNG element of rolling certain buffs, the likelihood that you're going to get a Shadow Damage Wisdom proc is more common than not. And since it lasts for 40 seconds, you can still take advantage of this damage long after Weapons of Order fades. Lastly, because of the frequency you can proc this, Weapons of Order becomes a very strong defensive cooldown because of the previously talked about Against All Odds talent, which grants main set for every set of Flurry Strikes you expel, meaning that it's possible to maintain 20% main set for a short period of time during this cooldown. This tier set is extremely fun and powerful, and it's pretty much exactly how I pictured Shado-pan playing ever since its inception. Now, Shado-pan is very bursty. It's a very aggressive style of Brewmaster that I have found enjoyment in, and I'm hoping you do too. I'm not sure what Blizzard has in store for the class in the future, but as long as this hero talent tree exists, Brewmaster will always be a very enjoyable tank. In the next video, we are going to discuss everything about Master of Harmony, so keep an eye out for that video, and of course, let me know if you have any questions down below. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.